In Hollywood, grudges can hide behind smiles, and loyalty is as rare as honesty. Michael Keaton, the actor who wore the mask of Batman and the madness of Birdman, has lived long enough to see how shallow those smiles can be. Behind the charm and quick wit lies a man who never forgets betrayal. For decades, he kept his silence, preferring to let his performances speak louder than gossip. But those close to him say there's a darker truth, a list of 6 Hollywood names Keaton never forgave. Each feud shaped not only his career but the legend surrounding him. This is the untold story of Michael Keaton's 6 most intense Hollywood rivalries, the ones that burned behind the cameras long before fans ever suspected. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. 1. Jack Nicholson, The Battle of the Batmen. It started in 1989, when Batman became more than just a movie, it was a cultural earthquake. Michael Keaton, a surprising choice for the Caped Crusader, was facing a Hollywood giant, Jack Nicholson, the legendary Joker. But what began as on-screen chemistry turned into one of the coldest rivalries in blockbuster history. According to crew members, tension flared early. Nicholson, already a 3-time Oscar winner, expected top billing, the biggest paycheck, and full creative authority. Keaton, still proving himself as a serious actor after Beetlejuice, wanted to focus on the work, not ego wars. But Nicholson reportedly saw Keaton as an intruder, a comedian daring to stand shoulder to shoulder with a Hollywood god. During press tours, Nicholson's charm turned sharp. He would refer to Keaton as the kid or that TV guy, subtle digs meant to remind everyone of hierarchy. On set, whispers circulated that Nicholson would show up late, improvise wildly, and then joke that he was carrying the picture. Keaton, the consummate professional, bit his tongue, but never forgot. When Batman Returns was greenlit, Nicholson's influence supposedly reached deep into studio politics. Keaton's friends claim that Warner Brothers reduced his creative control and nearly pushed him out entirely. That betrayal stung. It's said that Keaton added a personal clause in later negotiations, no involvement with Nicholson in any future Batman projects. The two men would never appear together again. Keaton's revenge came quietly. Years later, while Nicholson's career slowed, Keaton resurrected his with Birdman, a dark satire of the very superhero culture they once built. It was poetic justice, the student proving he'd never needed the master's approval. 2. Jim Carrey, the comedian who crossed the line. Few actors could make Keaton laugh harder than Jim Carrey, until he couldn't. Both men were comic geniuses, each defining a generation of humor. But for Keaton, comedy was always rooted in truth. For Carrey, it was chaos. That difference eventually turned admiration into animosity. In the early 90s, Carrey was Hollywood's new golden boy, the highest-paid comedian alive. Keaton, already a household name, was reinventing himself as a dramatic actor. When both were up for projects like The Cable Guy and Batman Forever, sparks flew behind the scenes. Studio insiders said Carrey openly mocked Keaton's intensity, calling him too serious to be funny. Keaton, who valued authenticity above all, took that as an insult to his craft. Things worsened when Carrey landed the role of the Riddler in Batman Forever. Keaton had already walked away from the franchise, but to see Carrey in the new film felt like salt in an old wound. Reportedly, Keaton called the movie cartoonish nonsense in private and refused to watch it. Carrey, for his part, joked on late-night shows that he'd save Batman from being boring again. It was an open jab, and Keaton never forgot. The feud remained icy for years. When Dumb and Dumber 2 was announced in 2014, producers allegedly invited Keaton for a cameo as a surprise nod to Night Shift. He declined, telling friends he didn't want to share a frame with that guy. It wasn't hate for Carrey's success, it was contempt for what Keaton saw as mockery of the art of acting itself. 3. Val Kilmer, the Dark Knight who stole his throne. If there was one betrayal that still haunts Michael Keaton, it's the one wearing a cape. After Keaton walked away from Batman Forever due to script disagreements, Val Kilmer stepped in. To the public, it looked like a simple casting change. But behind the scenes, Keaton saw it as treason. Sources close to the production say Keaton had urged the studio to take a darker, more psychological approach. When he refused to reduce Batman into a punchline, Warner Brothers turned to Kilmer, younger, smoother, and more compliant. For Keaton, the sting wasn't just losing the role, it was being replaced by someone he considered a lightweight. Kilmer, confident and cocky, didn't make things better. During interviews, he dismissed questions about Keaton, saying, "I didn't study his Batman, I made it my own." It sounded harmless, but to Keaton, it was disrespect. Hollywood friends recall that Keaton once quipped privately, "Some people inherit the suit, but not the soul." The silent rivalry lingered for decades. When Keaton returned as Batman in The Flash 2023, fans celebrated the comeback. What many didn't know was that Kilmer's name was deliberately left out of the film's multiverse references, a subtle erasure that insiders say Keaton approved of. To him, the message was simple: there was only one true Batman. 4. Tom Cruise, the superstar and the undermining of Rain Man. This feud cuts deeper than any cape or cowl. In 1988, Keaton was in advanced talks to play Charlie Babbitt in Rain Man. He'd read the script, met with director Barry Levinson, and was excited to explore a complex emotional story. But then, Tom Cruise entered the picture and everything changed. Insiders claim Cruise lobbied aggressively for the role, promising to boost the film's box office potential. The studio caved, citing Cruise's star power. Keaton was quietly dropped. To make matters worse, Cruise reportedly told executives Keaton didn't have the commercial face for a movie like this. That line got back to Keaton, and it cut deep. Rain Man went on to win 4 Oscars and became a cultural milestone. For Keaton, it was a missed masterpiece. In later interviews, when asked about roles he regretted losing, he'd only smile and say, "Some movies choose their own people." But his friends knew he never forgave Cruise. Over the years, their paths crossed at events, but they never exchanged more than a curt nod. When asked in 2016 about Top Gun, Keaton reportedly joked, "I've already played enough characters with identity crises." It was a subtle, cutting reminder that while Cruise chased adrenaline, Keaton chased authenticity. 5. Robert Downey Jr., the marvel of contempt. When Iron Man launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Robert Downey Jr. became the face of a billion-dollar empire. To the world, he was the comeback king, the actor who rose from ashes. But to Michael Keaton, it felt familiar. Almost too familiar. Keaton had lived that arc decades earlier, the quirky outsider who transformed into a superhero and then reclaimed artistic respect through a self-aware masterpiece, Birdman. When Birdman won Keaton his Golden Globe, the parallels between his life and Tony Stark's redemption story were obvious. Yet, Hollywood's praise seemed to revolve around Downey, not Keaton. During Spider-Man Homecoming 2017, the two finally shared the screen. Insiders describe an icy professionalism between them. Keaton played the Vulture, a blue-collar villain crushed by Stark's arrogance, and some said that metaphor wasn't accidental. Between takes, Downey's improvisational style reportedly clashed with Keaton's precision. One crew member claimed Downey mocked Keaton's method approach, saying, "Lighten up, Mike, it's just a Marvel movie." Keaton didn't forget. In later interviews, when asked if he'd return to the MCU, he said bluntly, "I prefer characters who have something real to lose." To fans, it was humility. To Hollywood, it was shade. To Keaton, it was justice, a reminder that not all heroes wear CGI armor. 6. Bill Murray, the comic who never stopped competing. Of all the rivalries, this one began as friendship and ended in silence. Back in the early 80s, both Keaton and Murray were climbing the same ladder. Murray had Ghostbusters, Keaton had Mr. Mom and Night Shift. They were two sides of the same coin. Sardonic, spontaneous, effortlessly funny. But Hollywood only had room for one top comedian at a time. Rumor has it, Murray often dismissed Keaton as TV funny, while Keaton felt Murray coasted on aloofness. Things came to a head during auditions for Scrooge 1988, a role both men wanted. Murray won it, and his performance became iconic. Keaton moved on, but the resentment simmered. Years later, when Multiplicity struggled at the box office, Murray reportedly joked to a friend, That's what happens when you clone yourself. You multiply the boredom. Word got back to Keaton, and the last remnants of their friendship dissolved. The two never worked together again. When Keaton hosted Saturday Night Live in 2015, producers floated the idea of a surprise Murray cameo. Keaton shut it down immediately. He smiled through the sketches that night, but those who know him say the mention of Murray still makes his jaw tighten. It's not about fame, it's about respect. And once Keaton loses respect for someone, there's no going back. The man behind the grudges. Through every feud, one thing remained constant. Michael Keaton's belief in authenticity. Hollywood thrives on politics, alliances, and backroom deals, but Keaton built his career on instinct and honesty. He's not the type to scream or sabotage, but he never forgets who crossed him. His silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. He's lived long enough to see many rivals fade, while his reputation only deepened. The Oscars, the comebacks, the reinventions, they weren't fueled by bitterness, but by conviction. Every betrayal became fuel for reinvention. At 73, Keaton doesn't need to expose anyone. His career is proof of everything he stood for. That real artistry doesn't need approval. Yet Hollywood insiders still whisper about the quiet fire in his eyes when certain names come up. Maybe he's forgiven them. Maybe not. But one thing is certain. Behind the calm smile of Michael Keaton lies a ledger written in memory, not ink. And in Hollywood, memory can be the sharpest weapon of all.